Did you manage for power, Longo?
Power, well the first power that I introduced to the island was, you see, when after the war years everyone was anxious to get radios, buy radios, and I was involved in PJ Clark in Westport. It was the radio shop in Westport, Clark's radio shop in Westport at the time. And I was talking to PJ and I said to him, PJ, it was he that said it to me, he said, you should start selling radios on the island. And I said, I said maybe want to try. So anyway, I put the word around anyway about Ireland, and there was at the time, you could get there was a hire purchase arrangement. He said, you can tell them all, you can get a hire purchase arrangement now for buying a radio. You could buy a radio for at that time, a big pie radio for about €20 or £20 or something like that. And I came in anyway, and I mentioned it to a few, and God, everyone jumped at the bait, took the bait, and when one got a radio, it started to go right around the island. Everyone else wanted it. So I put radios into nearly every house in the island from PJ Clark's at the time. And then of course the big problem arose afterwards was the batteries. You see, the old radios, they were all wet batteries. There was 2 batteries involved in all the old radios, the high tension battery and the low tension battery. The high tension battery was a big dry cell, one that you could stick, and that would last for about 2 or 3 months. But the low tension was a wet battery in acid, with plated acid induced battery, and that had to be charged. This would last maybe, you might get a few, depending on how long you'd leave the radio switched on and the news and everything like that, or whatever you were listening to. It would only, you could get, maybe the best you'd get out of a low tension battery or a wet battery would be about 2 or 3 weeks. So, bringing the batteries just to go out into the mainland to be charged, you had to send them into Harley's garage in Westport, or Lewisburg. And that became an awful bloody.
And how much did the charge cost?
The charge was only about 2 shillings.
2 shillings,
at the time, But it was a nuisance, and in the end I said to Clark, I said, this is an awful job now, I said, about these bloody batteries having to charge them. And he said, look, he said, I'll get you a wind charger. And he says, I'll get you the wind charger on the strength of all the stuff you have sold and everything like that, but I got a few bob out of him. But he got this wind charger and I set it up anyway, and I started charging the batteries. So that's how, it went. From that point in time on, the charger was great, but on the cam days then, if you got 2 or 3 cam days in the winter or summertime, you wouldn't be able to charge a battery at all. But I used to have a bank of bloody batteries from the island charging every day nearly, every other day.
And we were charging them as well, to charge, yeah?
Charge them 2 shillings.
2 shillings.
2 and 6, a half a crown.
That was a little living to be made of.
It was a half crown as well, right? 2 and 6 was a half crown at the time.
How long would it take to charge one?
Oh, you'd about 2 days or so, 2 or 3 days, depending on the pressure of wind, and the number that you could put on the charger. I think there was 6 of them I'd put on the charger at a time. There were 2 volts, 12 volts, you'd only charge to the 12 volt generator. You'd only charge the 12 volts, 2 batteries, all 2, link them up in series. But
so what did you use for light?
Well, you see, then I got the idea then with the batteries. I got an idea from my mother. God love her, she was all the time cooking, because my mother, at that time, I was bringing people in and out to the house every other day, or in and out of the house every other day. There was nowhere for people to sit down and eat when they come to the island. And I'd go off the boat and they'd say, is there any way we can have a cup of tea? And my mother used to get up every morning. When I think about her, the first thing she'd do was get down the pot on the baking, get down to baking in the morning and have a stack of scones by lunchtime when the boat would come in. And because they'd all go, and she used to feed everybody that came out. But anyhow...
And where would she feed them from?
Well, they're down in the house, the old house. That's where you're staying at the moment.
Okay, yeah.
Down in that house, but that was this new, that was the old house. But I said, well, I'll try and get batteries in now. I'll get storage batteries, good storage batteries, and I wired the place myself. I was interested in wiring. I got books on electricity. And I started wiring the house, and I wired the house and I connected it up, and we got electricity from my mother after a while, and she was absolutely thrilled. It was great, but it was just a direct, it was direct current, you couldn't use any electric units on it, but at least you had light, But that was it, the batteries, and then the televisions, of course, came in later down. Oh, that was much later, but the batteries were always a problem. I remember in the early years, when I was a very young kid, we were the only radio on the island, I think 1 or 2 radios, and there was one in McCabe's, and I had one, Dad had one, and was there another one? There was a school teacher on the island that had one. But I remember the war years, you know, the latter years of the war, and all the old fellas used to flock into the house at night to listen to Lord Haw Haw and to listen to Churchill and listen to what was going on in the world. They were mad interested in what was going on as far as the war was concerned. They knew more about the war, I think, than any part of Ireland. They were constantly in the house at night and they used to be arguing amongst themselves about where they should be and where the different armies should be at the different times. It was the most interesting time, you know.
And what other content was on the radio at that time?
Pardon?
What kind of other programs were on there? Was it?
But sure, it was all, like in those years there was only one programme, well of course there was various programmes. The one programme that was everyone was listening to that time was the war.
War.
I mean the war, it was every station you went to. It was the war in Europe.
And was it non-stop?
But you're not non-stop all day long.
All day
They didn't, every hour, every half hour there was news flashes from all the different fronts.
And was there Irish news?
Oh, there were, well, there were on Radio Ireland, of course, was there, I suppose, at that time. I can't, you know, that's something that I can't recall too much now, but I know that the BBC, BBC 1 and 2 or something were there at that time quite clearly, and I know that I had the BBC on all the time because the BBC was pumping out nothing but war material all day long.
But even when I was young now, there was very restricted hours on radio. It used to open in the morning and lunchtime and a few hours at night. It wasn't done all day.
RTE is only open around 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
You see, and maybe it might go up to about 2 o'clock, and afterwards closed then until 6 o'clock in the evening.
That's right.
But the BBC was running all the time.
Okay.